Great privilege to welcome in best-selling author, the author of a new book. I just read it. I'm reviewing in this piece. Frank Schaeffer. The book is called Fall in Love, Have Children, Stay Put, Save the Planet, Be Happy. So Frank, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'm so glad you could join us. You know what I love about these sessions is, my audience might like to hear what I like to think of the book, but I love to hear the author's view of certain things about the book. And I just actually got done with Fall in Love, Have Children, Stay Put, Save the Planet, Be Happy this morning. So it's fresh in my mind. So this should be pretty fun.
Excellent. Well, Tobin, I appreciate you paying attention to the book and having me on.
All right. Well, great. Thank you. It's our pleasure, like I said. So a couple logistical things. The new book comes out on the 2nd of November.
Correct. It'll be everywhere 2nd of November, and you can pre-order now on Amazon, and you'll get a copy basically the day after it's released. And it's audiobook, Kindle, and of course the hard copy of the book.
Excellent. I can't wait for our audience to read it. So, that everybody that's probably listening / reading this is a parent, a grandparent, someone who's around parenting now, right? And so let's give them some big picture ideas. So where I wanted to first start was the title. Not only is it long, it's kind of wordy, but it's big picture stuff, right? And it doesn't allude to the pandemic, but after getting done with your book, there's a lot of pandemic plays in terms of parenthood and living life, wouldn't you say?
Sure. I mean, I'm a grandfather. I'm a father of 3 grown children, a grandfather of 5 kids. The 3 youngest ones live across the street. They are the son and daughters of my son, John, who served in the U.S. Marine Corps, fought in Afghanistan, came back, went to the University of Chicago, married Becky, moved in literally into my neighborhood. So all grandchildren mean a lot, but the kids of somebody who went to war for his country came back in one piece. And instead of me going to his funeral, I get to do childcare for these 3 kids. Is literally like a gift. I mean, this is like the most beautiful thing that's ever happened in my life in that context. So for the last 12 years, my wife, Jeannie, and I have been the full-time childcare providers for these 3 children. And that way, my son, John, and Becky, up until the pandemic, were both working outside the home. Since the pandemic, Becky still works outside the home, but John now works from home. But now that all 3 of those little kids are in school, my childcare is reduced to school pickups at 3 p.m. Little Nora, who's now 7, stays with me every evening. I cook for her, we play, I give her my undivided attention. And I'm kind of running out of babies. Some people get to the end of the small child era with relief. Me, I'm dreading it because it's the thing that keeps me sane and happy. And yes, it's difficult. And yes, I lose my temper sometimes. And yes, I shout at Nora once in a while, and she turns to me and says, "Ba," she calls me Ba, "today you are over caffeinated," because I once explained to her that I have too much coffee sometimes. But other than that, I have to tell you, I have discovered almost something I might call reparenting myself, because this is my second bite at the apple. I'm doing the things with these grandchildren that I'd wish I'd had the experience, knowledge, and patience to do with my own children. And I wrote this book, Fall in Love, Have Children, Stay Put, Save the Planet, Be Happy, to operate on 2 levels. One, it is a book that I wish I had read as a parent or as a younger grandparent with my first set of older grandchildren who came on visits and so on. And secondly, it's a book that really makes a case for a legislative agenda, a moral agenda, a spiritual agenda, for actually changing this country into a country that honors and respects family values. And it's my contention in the book, and I'm not exaggerating, that if you designed a culture that put too much emphasis on work, not enough on parenting, too much emphasis on individualism, and this kind of approach to life, not enough on community and family, ours would be the society. As I say in my book, we define ourselves by our job titles, not by our human relationships. And because of that, we all suffer. And in being a full-time child caregiver of 3 little kids for the last 12 years, and I canceled many speaking events and other things to provide time to do that. And now that I'm on Social Security and Medicare, we were able to swing that financially. I've discovered something about myself. And the way I put it is this way, and I'm not being facetious. In a way, I'd rather be a mother. And I'm not using that in a gender way or sexual orientation. I'm just using it as a verb, to mother, to mothering, as a caregiver I have found my deepest meaning in caregiving. And that's what the book is about. And it's about a program to make that more available to all of us, and wondering why our culture does not support caregivers, whether it's moms or dads or grandparents or people we pay to caregive, or it's folks in daycare centers or nursery schools or all these other things. We denigrate caregiving, and I'm just positively sick of it. But I also think it is so stupid, especially for males, who therefore miss out on a huge chunk of life's richest blessing. And that's what the book is.
Do you think that, so in the context of coming generally out of the pandemic, into and out of the pandemic, how do you think that, has your opinion changed over that period of time, or are you just more keenly aware of that opinion?
That's a good question. And my opinion has changed and evolved in this way. This book I thought was going to be a 2-year project, and I started it 5.5 years ago. Most of my books take 1.5 years or 2 years to write. And then I have friends that teach things in universities about science and evolution and psychology. And I started sending them copies. And they said, look, we love your personal reminiscences, and they're very touching. And they drew us in. But here's another book you should read. Here's a paper you should read. Here's a study session you should do. And I found myself investigating evolutionary psychology and why it is that love, just to put it bluntly, is a thing. It has to do with big brain babies that are always born premature because all our moms would die if babies came to full gestation in the womb the way, say, other primates do. It has to do with the fact that we all need incentives to treat our children kindly and to stick with the program. And that incentive is love. Love is not a kind of Oprah-esque fantasy for Valentine's Day. Love is a real thing. It's a neurobiological fact in our brains. In fact, it's the ultimate motivation to both parent and grandparent. And not only that, to reach out to other people we're not even related to, with empathy and care and community. So the more I studied, the more I realized that I had a book here that might be important, especially for my own kids, especially for people that I love who are near me, who are trying to find their way in relationships and how to stay, in a relationship once they pair bond and so forth. But then it went beyond that. Then the pandemic hit, and everything I was calling for in the book, take time, stay home more, live a quieter life, put the people in your life first and your career second, put the people in your life first and material possessions second, have a spiritual aspect to your parenting and grandparenting, was forced upon us. It's like Mother Nature sent us a memo. And now I am being facetious and joking when I say it's as if Mother Nature wrote the foreword to my book and said, you better read Frank Schaeffer's book, Fall in Love, Have Children, Stay Put, Save the Planet, Be Happy. And by the way, for 1 whole year, we, Mother Nature, thinking of her in the plural, are going to make you do what he's calling for. And that is quiet down. You're not going to be able to put career first because you're going to be stuck at home. And you're going to be looking at yourself in a mirror, wondering what is really important to me in life. So the book went through 25 drafts, and drafts 26 and 27 were in the last year with my publisher, HCI Press. Once I decided that I would not ignore the pandemic, but rather talk about it because the fit was perfect. And in a way, I hate to say that because obviously the pandemic is a tragedy, but the book is in the right time at the right place, because every other essay I read in a newspaper, commentaries you hear on TV, the radio, what's it all about these days? How do we go back to normal, and what is normal? Why are thousands of people quitting their jobs? Why is Steve Buttigieg, the secretary of working for Joe Biden, he's getting criticism because he's taken paternity leave. Everybody's talking about these same things. Fathers who were stuck at home longer. Look, my daughter's a CEO of a company in New York City, and she wrote me a whole bunch of emails, some of which I use in the book, where she said the fact that sometimes she's had to lie as a woman in business where she's doing something for her family and yet gets criticism if she says honestly, look, I'm not in the office because I'm doing a school pickup, or I'm taking care of a child, or I've decided to take an afternoon off and take my kid to the museum. She has to pretend she's at work all the time. And men really are in the same thing. So what the book calls for is for all the things that are no-brainers, paternity leave, maternity leave, time off, but more than that, that we change the social structure so that parents, male and female, can swap off when it comes to a couple years. And what I remind people in the book is the little child years are agonizingly short. They go by in a heartbeat, and then your kid's 3 or 4 and they're in preschool and you're not at home all day with the child. And so looking back, I'm pushing 70 now. And looking back, if I had any message for a young parent, it's listen, I know it seems long, when you're up all night. I know it seems long when a child is a toddler, but cling to those moments. They're going to be gone before you can wake up tomorrow morning. It goes quick. Your life's going to be long. You have plenty of time for career. And I want to make it cool for people to jump in and out of career and family childcare. I want to make it cool for men to be primary caregivers along with women. I want to make it cool for women to be able to go back to work and not have any criticism. How do I re-enter my career? There shouldn't even be a question of that.
Yeah.
And that's the emphasis of the book. So the book talks about my own experiences with my grandchildren. And I hope it's warm, and I hope it's touching, and I hope it helps people. But I also make a case borne out by science and facts and studies that have been vetted by a lot of people who really know what they're talking about, who I thank in my acknowledgements, who teach neurobiology and things like that on a university level, in a way that I hope gives every parent, every grandparent, every caregiver a new sense of self-worth and self-respect, some ideas that are good, and an agenda to vote on, to elect people. And what I would say is these are real family values, not the fake family values that we're sold all the time by political leaders, but real ones. And if we really care about families, we're going to start doing this stuff. And that's what my book calls for.
Well, what I expected. So I'd done research on you as I got the book, and what I thought I was going to get was more post-pandemic stuff, far less science. And it was actually quite refreshing, because I feel like your presentation is, here's my experience, here, I'm going to own it. Here's my childhood, I'm going to own that, because I did know a little bit about that from your previous bestsellers. And I'm going to pair those two with some science that a neutral party could respect, that I think is a neutral party could respect, and I'm going to make a case. And so it has stopped short of being judgmental. Like, if you're career focused, you're not downing people. You're just saying, hey, you might want to think about this, this, and this. Here's how we have evolved. Here's how the career focus might be in opposition to how we've evolved, and here's why that's harmful. So I appreciated the argument making and the twisting of that knife without a finger point, I guess, is what I would say. Did you kind of feel like that's how you intended the audience to
Yeah,
take
I mean, look at this. Why have I done childcare for 12 years? Because my brilliant my brilliant daughter-in-law, Becky, has a wonderful career as a school administrator. She's running a fantastic bilingual French-English program at a high school level. My son, who survived combat in the Marine Corps, needs to support his family. Listen, traditionalism is not that women don't work and men are career breadwinners. Traditionalism is that men and women work. I grew up in a farming community in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. Whenever you pass the community, the women weren't doing quote unquote women's work, caring for the children, the men doing men's work. They were all out in the field bringing in the hay. They were all milking the cows. They were all slaughtering the pig. They were all taking care of the goats and sheep. The traditional model of caregiver, whether it's hunter-gatherer societies 50,000 years ago in our evolution, whether it's 1,000 years ago in all farming and agrarian communities. Look at the farmhouses in northern Italy. They all have courtyards. Why? Because they kept building a new wing and adding. Who was taking care of the children? Grandparents or nieces or nephews or friends or neighbors. Parents were working, not the man only, male and female. When you flip out of the agrarian society into the commercial context we have now, what we need is women working. What we need is men working. But we need to also understand that if we want to be happy, we cannot say no to love. Love motivates everything. So we don't want to, at the end of the day, look back and say, wow, I wish I'd had more time with my family. Instead, we want to be brave. And we want to say, listen, I'm taking 3 years off to be with these 2 little kids I've got and take care of them now, not because women should work or men should work, but because I, as a parent, have made this choice. I, as a grandparent, have made this choice. Or I am not going to move so much so I can be near people. Stay put. Don't move just because you get a bigger paycheck or a corner office if you move to Albuquerque, New Mexico, when you're living in wherever you are, Vermont. Stay there. Your mom lives down the road. They know you on your street. I'm calling for putting community and children first. I'm not in any sense saying, everybody has to pair bond and have kids. One of the things I talk about in my book is that having children is a caregiving view of the world, where you judge your success by the quality of the care you give and receive. That's open to everyone. That's open to someone who is not pair bonded, non-binary people, lesbian people, gay men. It has nothing to do with gender. It has nothing to do with traditional roles. It has to do with priorities. How do we define success? Do we define success the way Ayn Rand did? Power over other people, the most money possible, trample anyone who gets in your way, or do we define it like this, which I think is a better definition? It's what you read in the eyes of the people who love you and know you. And what you see there is the truth about yourself. It's not your job title, it's how you relate to them. And what you read in those faces and those eyes, whether you're pair bonded or single, whether you're married or unmarried, whether you have children or not, that circle of people are your true mirror. And if you keep hopping around and losing those connections, you will be lonely. I have a lot of statistics in the book about loneliness.
Well, let me ask you this.
Smash all those relationships for career and job as if that defines you. And if we keep telling young people in college, hey, don't even fall in love yet. Do big fancy things first. Wait until you have a child. Wait. What's the result? People in their mid-30s on dating apps ceaselessly looking for someone to hook up with, because the time when the hormones kicked in and they were younger and they were in love, someone was telling them, oh, no, you got your whole life here. Be careful. Don't do this too quickly. What do we tell females? We tell them nothing. And people wake up when they're 38 years old, like the Obamas did. And all of a sudden, in the midst of high-powered careers, they want children. And as Michelle very honestly talks about, they then had to go to IVF and all these things. We've made simple procreation, falling in love, relationships weird. And we've done it because we have put career first. And that has nothing to do with women working. It's everybody. It has to do with Buttigieg being mocked because he's taking some paternity leave. Our culture's anti-family. It's anti-child. It's anti-paternity. It's anti-maternity. I am not talking about traditional white heterosexual relationships. I am talking about all of us.
Well, Frank, let me ask you this. So as I'm a 44-year-old man who's chased career stuff for a long time. Sometimes I have a lot of kids. I have 5 kids all while. And there are times where I think, man, where would I be without these children, right? Where would I be in a different position now? Or, man, these, having 5 kids and I'm trying to raise really makes it difficult to be creative, right? Because I don't have an annuity paycheck and it might be an easier road to do that corporate life. So can you be a guy like me, a middle-aged guy or a middle-aged parent reading your book and going, God, I really agree with Frank, but man, it's just such a harder road. Like, what do you say to those parents?
I would say they're absolutely right. And you could say that about every aspect of life. Any book you read on anything, I happen to be a passionate cook. I'm the chef in our home. I cook for everybody. I love it. And I build. I'm a carpenter. I build. I like to build with masonry. I like to build with wood. I cook. I garden. I've stayed in one house for 41 years and done all the building myself and renovation and so forth. There's not one job in this house that if I went back, I couldn't do better. There's not one moment with any child I've had where I didn't lose patience at some point and call it a day. I have managed to sort of partially fail at everything I have tried all through my life. But here's a weird thing, and I'm not trying to be smart here, Tobin, and flip this. The funny thing is that at 70, I look back on my failures as often the best thing that happened to me. And I mean that, I don't mean that, I mean it literally. I got into the movie business in Hollywood and I made 4 mediocre films and we almost moved there and I could have made some more mediocre films. Because I failed, my wife said to me, try writing a novel, try writing a screenplay of the kind that you would want to actually direct instead of these low budget horror and slasher films that I was making in the 80s. And this was after I left the evangelical childhood I had. And I wrote Portofino, which became an international success and 15 books ago gave me permission to keep writing. I found myself. If I had succeeded at what I would have killed for at that moment, which is a good movie that made a hit, I would have missed exactly what I was doing. And I feel the same way with children. It's out of the frustrations of those late nights when they wake you up, that when that child emerges at 2, 3, 4 and becomes a best friend, You treasure that friendship because you went through the time when they didn't say much to you and they were problematic. I feel the same about marriage and relationships. And that is that Jeannie and I have been married a long time. We've been together. There's no magic bullet. I have a lot of regrets. I could have done a lot of things better. But one of the reasons I love her so much and, get up a little earlier to do my writing so I can clean the kitchen before she gets up is all the crap she has put up with and become my therapist through by kicking my butt, good sex, no sex, yelling, screaming, begging me to change. And I have changed. Because, see, I was raised in a patriarchal home of an evangelist where men were supposed to be in charge. Women had to obey men. Kids were to be disciplined. In having a woman who had the patience and the grace and the fortitude to work through that with me, our marriage is one now where it's not only a deep friendship, it's one built on a respect. I would never have known who she was if I hadn't been myself, the cause of so many of the problems in our family. So I have a weird way of looking back on problems and failures with children and family within a certain bounds. I'm not talking about violence and I'm not talking about horrible things, but within certain bounds, it's a shame that we give up too quick on some of these relationships or get too impatient. And I would just say again to any younger parent, those young years when it's most frustrating and difficult go very, very quickly. And the funny thing is, if you really bond in those young years and maintain the friendship, when you get to the teen years, they're completely different because the people you bonded with are literally best friends. I know it's strange to refer to a child as your best friend, but they really are. And so you can joke about yourself. I joke with Lucy all the time. She's 13 now. She's 2 inches taller than me. She's an incredible girl. We joke together. I'm able to kid her about being a teenager. She's able to kid me about being this old guy, who forgets things sometimes. It's a wonderfully sustaining relationship. None of that would have happened if I hadn't just taken the hours and been her primary caregiver for 8-9 hours a day when she was little. Right. And yeah, those were tough years, but I wouldn't change them for anything. And that's a long rambling answer to a straight up question, but that I'm just sharing my heart with you on that.
No, I love it. And the perspective I was going to bring up, Lucy, as we close out here. So again, before I do that, this is Frank Schaeffer. I'm so pleased. He's a best-selling author of numerous books, the author of a new book out on the 2nd of November. You can pre-order it now on Amazon. Fall in love, have children, stay put, save the planet, be happy. Hey, so back to Lucy. So I finished reading the book this morning, as I divulged to you, and I'll be damned if you didn't almost make me cry at the end. And I don't know if it's because I was tired or what, but just tell our audience a little bit about the poem you got and what you say is engraved on your headstone in the future. I thought that was pretty touching. A good wrap of the book.
I'll get my glasses out here so I can share it with you. I've got a copy of the book here. I just got my advanced copies, by the way. So here they are. This is what it looks
okay.
like.
They look the cover looks great, by the way.
Yeah, I love the cover. And it's not my work. It's a wonderful woman who's a designer at HCI Press. I love her work. I talk about the fact that sometimes we lose patience and then in this weird way find redemption. And my granddaughter, Nora, came out. She's the little one I'm taking care of now. She came out. Lucy's the little one I follow all the way through. And at the end, Nora was coming out of school and she has this piece of paper. And I'm never on a cell phone when I pick her up, but this is the one day I was talking to a donor of an organization that I help support. And he was talking to me about sending them some money. So I was encouraging him, and it was an important call. So I said, shh, don't give me the paper and so on. And she got back in the back of the car, and she's not used to that because she gets my attention. When it was time to take her home, we walked to Nora's house in a post getting yelled at silence because I had yelled at her for disturbing my call. I was feeling guilty and sad. Why had I yelled at her? Back home, at last, I read the poem she'd held up so eagerly. Moments after I read it, I pulled a watercolor out of its frame and replaced it with Nora's poem. I placed it on a wall where I'll see it every day for the rest of my life. I hope it's carved on my tombstone. Once I'd put Nora's treasured words up on the wall, I ran out to the garden, picked a fistful of daffodils that had just bloomed that week. I walked to her house to say thank you for the poem and to apologize for being mean. I told Nora that her poem is, quote, now my most prized possession, and I meant it. Nora was fully restored and breezily joked, you mean if there's a fireball, you'll grab my poem first before me? No, I'll grab you first. I said, I'll grab Zip, that's my dog, and my poem, and you can carry Zip, my poem, and me, and carry you and Zip and my poem outside. Big smile, shared laughter, big hug, redemption. Whose idea was the poem, I asked? Mine. Miss Nell said to write any poem about anything I wanted to. And I wrote, quote, Ba, B-A, that's what she calls me, is. So the name of the poem is Ba is. Spelling and punctuation are, as in the original, laboriously written in cursive Ba, as she put it, in pencil on a lined sheet of school paper. Nora's words offer me a vision of myself as I would love to be seen by others, but have never measured up to. Put this in the evangelical language I was raised on. Nora's poem might be the best defense I can offer at the last judgment. Now it's in her spelling. Ba is by Nora S. Be creative, be kind, spelled C-I-N-D. Ba is creative, Ba is kind, Ba is smart, and Ba is my friend, and Ba is comforting. Spelled Kumfrnding.
Yeah,
And
it
I
took me a
thought
couple
literally
times to figure that one out.
Yeah, that came out of an afternoon when I was really ashamed of myself because she had come out all happy and eager with this poem, interrupted this phone call. I had snapped at her. And then the poem is the sweetest thing anybody's ever said about me. She lists the things that her Ba is, and she just makes it declarative sentences. So isn't that typical of life? I mean, the very moment a child's handing you the most wonderful thing a little kid's ever given me she chose an afternoon where I was preoccupied and snapped at her. But at the end there, that poem is now hanging on a wall where I see it every day. And when I'm filled with self-doubt and sometimes a little bit of self-loathing, because we all doubt and question ourselves, I look at that and I got to tell you seriously, I won some awards for my writing and I've done some things and I've had a few fancy experiences, but nothing that I've ever done is as much of an affirmation of the effort I've made to do the right thing in this life as her little thing. And those last words, Ba is comforting. How else would you like to be described by a child that you are comforting? I mean, to me, literally on the last judgment, if there is one, I'm going to be saying, yeah, all this other shit happened. I'm sorry, but hey, when Nora was 6, here's what she said. And I'm pleading my case on that basis. And to me, the justification for who we are as human beings is found in the way we treat those that we care for. And if we're smart, we're going to make sure we have people around us to care for, even if they're not kids, even if there are other people around us.
Yeah,
folks.
I tell you what, Frank, I really appreciate the time you gave us. I didn't know what to expect with the book, frankly. And I came away, it's a delicate dance to weave in science, to compassion, to current events, and you've done it so well here. So I hope I hope the people reading this, listening to you, are compelled to go buy the book because it's well worth the time. It's a quick read. You break it down, subsection by subsection. So for a parent like me who's often going between things, I thought it was an appropriate, level of depth versus speed. And then it ends on that Ba is poem. And I thought, oh my God, this is just perfect. And I thought to myself, you know what else Ba is? He's a pretty darn good writer. So I appreciate it, Frank.
Thank you. And let me just add one thing, and that is, let me tell anybody who reads your writing about the book and or listens to this podcast we made together that I am totally reachable. You can email me at frankschaeffer@aol.com. I really do answer my own emails.
Oh, wow.
And I don't, and the other thing is I do book clubs, and that might just be you and your mother-in-law. And I will, you get more than one copy of the book. Tell me you've got a book club. I will talk to your book club.
All right. Well,
I'd love to do that.
I hope my people can inundate your inbox. How about that? That'd be a deal.
I'd love to have my inbox inundated. And if they like my work and like the book, do me a favor and please pre-order, because as a working author, it really makes a difference. It's such a weird day we live in when people look to Amazon to see whether a book, how it's doing and whether to take it seriously. So it really is a help to someone like me who writes for a living.
I love it. Well, I hope this isn't the end of the road for us. We'll get back together on the phone. But for now, Frank Schaeffer, best-selling author of Fall in Love, Have Children, Stay Put, Save the Planet, Be Happy. His newest book is available for pre-order now on Amazon. Check out the links I have in this piece. or live on November 2nd. So Frank, thank you so much for joining me, man. I really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Tobin. Thank you.